Morning, it's Martin from Martin's Engine Services. Haven't made a video for a few days, primarily just been working on the old transit here. Nothing very exciting to report, just welding and painting and seam sealing. But as you can see, the old girls are all back together now. All the deck plates been cleaned up and welded in. Bit more seam sealing going on at the front. It's all looking very nice. Gone together remarkably well, considering I've had to recycle a lot of plates and various sections. So yeah, I'm very pleased with progress. Once I welded all these joints, I actually pushed with the brush, pushed the red oxide paint right into all the joins, poured it in everywhere, and it stripped out underneath. I've then given it 2 coats of that. I've then used polyurethane sealer over all the joints. I've then painted over the top again with red oxide, and then it will get at least 2 good heavy coats of paint. I've paid particular attention to sealing this front joint here because the water will have to run along there. It'll run nicely along there. You can't really see it, but there's actually like a small channel I've created in the sealer, so the water will go straight off the edges. No more obstructions here. I've made it so the water can't sit here like it used to. So have no more silly rust problems like we had before. Little modification I carried out the other day is I brought the winch cables through the deck just to tidy them up. Just a few things to make things a little bit better. It's just now the laborious job of lots of painting and lots of sealing, and it's got a much better job than all that nasty welding and grinding all this stuff clean. As is always, the last plate I put in was that one over there in the far corner, right front. That one was one of the worst ones to clean up, and that took some considerable time, which is always the way. But no, so I'm pleased. It's now all back together. It's nice and solid. So we've got rid of all those horrible problems I had. I've painted quite a lot of the underneath black, and I've started painting some of the cross beams and bits and pieces. So a couple of good coats of chassis paint underneath will keep it all in good order. The middle section here and the corresponding section over there were removed a few years ago when I did the other cross members, and these were all ground clean. The only sections that are a little bit rusty underneath are this one and this one. There's one long section here, but they're not in bad shape really, considering they haven't had the worst of the weather thrown at them. The wheel arches keep them pretty clean, and most of what happened at the front here was created by the problem of the water going under the plate and under the joins and getting into everything. So yeah, it's all looking very, very good. We can't see a lot underneath, it's too dark, but so I finished painting up all the chassis and bits and pieces, so it all looks very nice and respectable. Loads of nice new shiny nuts and bolts, and everything I've renewed can be renewed on the way. Makes life easier if you have to take it apart in the past, but we hope not to. I painted up the old winch mounting platform here. Rusty on the bottom. It's had a couple of good coats of red oxide and a couple of good coats of chassis paint. And I will be putting some anti-rust wax on here before I bolt it down. And so I will be wax on in as many items as I can to help things in the future. I have got to do the front wheel arches on here at some point, and front wings. Nothing on there is actually an MOT problem. It's all perfectly okay as it is, but it needs a bit of tidying up. But for now, I thought I'd concentrate on dealing with the worst of the problem. Anyhow, what else are we working on today? Well, I've got here on the engine stand now a 1300 or 1400 Vauxhall engine from a 1300 stock car, if that makes any sense. This is an engine I built roughly nearly a year ago now, and it's done a whole season's racing and is now starting to smoke a little bit, and the power's gone off. So it's time for a refresh. This is actually the 1400 Z14XE unit, which is a slightly later version of the one I rebuilt recently. There's a few variations such as compression ratio and piston height, and there are some variations in the cylinder head porting and whatnot, but fundamentally they're the same engine. This was just the upgraded version from about 2000 onwards. The other engine ran from about 96 to 2000. There is actually an intermediate version of this engine, which is the earlier engine, but is actually fitted with the later style cam cover, and actually has like an intermediate cylinder head, good old GM with their mix and match special. There's three heights of your inlet port. There's one that's a bit flatter, there's one that's quite a lot lower, and then there's this style. The earlier engine is slightly lower. The intermediate one is another entirely different shape. All the gaskets are different, just to make it that little bit more complicated. And likewise, they made a fairly weird cylinder head that effectively could take either cam cover setup, but not quite. They'd moved a few bolt holes, and so it's a typical GM special. So you have to be aware that there's effectively two bottom ends, the Z14 and the X14, and possibly three different cylinder head options. A lot of the parts are interchangeable, but there are again some very strange variations. The crankshafts are the same, but they change silly things like the crank pulley bolt is a different thread for the crank sprocket. They decided to change this thread here for no apparent reason. Some of the later engines have a timing sensor here. Some of the earlier engines have the facility for it here, but nothing on the crankshaft. And there's another version of this where it has the timing sensor like the early one here. Some have a timing sensor here, and a timing sensor here, and a cam sensor. Some don't have the cam sensor. There's a few variations. There's the Tigra version, and then there's the Astra version or Corsa version. They have variations in belt setups, different lengths of timing belt, slightly different idler pulley arrangements. So you have to be very aware that there are potential variations, especially if these have been apart a few times and you're not entirely sure what's there. So you have to match everything up carefully. It's like the piston rings. They changed thickness on this version of the engine to the earlier one, and you have to just be wary of this. To build them are exactly the same. There's no horrors in there at all. It's a fairly straightforward, robust little unit, so not too serious. This one's been nicely cleaned before it arrived, which is always nice to see. No horrible shale and oil and the mystery debris from the racetrack to remove. So it shouldn't be much of a problem, but basically just needs a good clean up and a refresh. So it was okay, but as he said, it's starting to lose a bit of power, lacked a bit of punch out the corner, and starting to show signs of oil burning, which is hardly surprising after a year's worth of racing. So I know the engine, this engine does get quite a lot of use, so I'm very pleased how reliable it's been. So I'm now going to start taking this to pieces. I will make another little video a bit later on in the week, possibly tomorrow, once I've got it all apart, and have a look at a few things, see if there's anything horrible, but I don't suspect anything too unwieldy to be found in there. And the only other thing I've got going on is that today, hopefully, the parts are arriving for this engine. Bit of fun and games getting the old Breese and Stratton parts sometimes. A lot of the parts evidently come via Belgium, which is via America, and all the usual fun and games, but I've got everything apart from one oil seal on its way to me today. Fortunately, the one part I am missing is easily replaceable with the engine still back in the tractor, which is the little oil seal that goes on this shaft. I've left the oil seal out for now and put a couple of O-rings in there just to keep it all supported so the shaft doesn't fall out. And in fact, this may have to go back to the customer and I'll have to pop the seal in later. It can't leak any worse than it was because there wasn't actually seal in there from factory at all, so anything is an improvement. It's not hard to reassemble this. I've put the camshaft back in, the crankshaft, counterweights and the governor, everything ready. So all I'm basically waiting for now is the side cover gasket. I put a new oil seal in here. In case you drop the casing on, put the other bits and bobs on, a few side covers and ends, and then I can stick it back in the machine. But this is very easily accessible on the machine. It points towards the front and there's loads of room. You just have to remove the throttle control plate from here, which is just 2 bolts. So fortunately, for a change, the part I can't get is on back order. It isn't the part that's going to stop me doing the job, so that's always a bit of a bonus. Anyhow, that's what I'm up to today. It should be quite an interesting week. Quite looking forward to taking this apart, so I'm going to get started now, and I'll make another video a bit later and report what I find. Hope you enjoyed this little video on what's happening in the workshop today. Please like and subscribe, it all helps my numbers, and thanks for watching. Bye for now.